In the last talk, we explored how when thinking's sticky, which it often is, you keep getting sucked back into the same narrative, your top 10 hits, you know how it goes. When it's sticky, how we can use the acronym RAIN to reestablish an embodied presence. And as a reminder, that means you just recognize what's going on. Okay, worrying. Allow, give space for the life that's here. Just give space. Don't judge yourself for thinking. Then investigate, R-A-I, investigate in the body. And just to say again, I like to keep repeating this, investigate for some people means think about it. That's not what it means in this. In RAIN, it means investigate in an embodied way. Find out, where do you feel it in your body? Is it pressure? Is there a sense of squeeze? Is there a sense of flow? What is it like in your body? Investigate. The N of RAIN, and the version that I've been teaching much more recently, is to nourish with kindness, with compassion, which means whatever you find, and often it's vulnerable or raw, to bring a quality of kindness to that. After you've done the steps of RAIN, recognizing and allowing and investigating, which means really contacting and nourishing, then just to rest in your immediate experience. And there's, in that resting, you'll notice what's called non-identification. That after doing RAIN, you're not so identified with what's going on. More, there's a resting in a wakefulness and openness that's free. It can be a matter of degree, but that's the fruit of RAIN. So don't just do RAIN and miss out on the fruit. Like if the rain falls and new plants come up, just rest and discover the new growth, the flowering. So we practice for a moment, just let's try it out and sense how we can become more embodied with RAIN, and then we'll move on. As you pause right now to practice, I'd like you to bring up something that happened today or yesterday or within the last few days that was slightly stressful, that got you thinking, got you activated, but not something supercharged. It won't be useful right now to do something supercharged. Something that brought up sticky thinking, irritation, anxiety. Might be something in a conversation with somebody, something at work, something going on with your health. Something that's around the corner that you're anxious about. Any situation that's a little sticky or tense will do. Take a moment to, again, reflect on it, think about it, remember it. The R is just to recognize, okay, this is what's going on. Stressful situation, thinking about it. The A is to allow, just to create some space that you're not trying to fix anything. You're not trying to make the stress go away. You're just allowing the situation to be there in your heart, body, mind. And then to investigate is to deepen your attention and just notice, well, how's it living in my body? With some curiosity. When I'm in this situation, when I'm activated, what's it like in my body? And scan the throat, the chest, the belly. come into your body. It helps to use a breath, a slow, longer breath, breathing in and out and feeling the breath that in your body, just to stabilize your attention in your body. Then use your breath. Investigate. What's it like? And even if you're not sure if how it feels right now is related to the situation, what matters is investigating, how is your body right now? What's going on right here? The N of rain, to nurture, is just to regard with kindness whatever you're noticing. You might nurture just with a sense of acceptance, warmth, gentleness. Some gesture of kindness. And then we pause after the active steps of rain to sense the fruit, whatever it is, without expectation, just to sense the quality of presence that's here. Just to notice what it's like, to rest in it. So sometimes when we're lost in thought or in a virtual reality, the coming home into the body is simple. We just go, oh, okay, I'm out there, and you just feel your breath and you come back in. And sometimes if it's stickier, as we just did, you'll recognize and allow what's going on and then investigate on purpose. Really bring your attention to scan down through your body and feel from the inside out. And on purpose, offer a gesture of kindness and discover how much more awake and present you are when you've taken those steps and deepened your attention. Okay, so opening your eyes. So this is the rain of embodied presence, a way to come in more purposefully. But now I'd like to bring up the question that I think is really a key one when we explore our bodies and coming awake in our bodies, which is, what if what's there feels like too much? And I'm wondering if how many of you have tried to come into the body, be mindful of the body, and felt like it just felt too difficult to be in your body. Can I just see by hands how many have noticed that? Don't be shy, it helps to. So just so for those that are listening, it's about half of us. I certainly have. I've had times that I've been so agitated or scared that it didn't feel useful even to sit into my body. It felt like better to calm myself before I come into direct contact with what's here. And so I'd like to take a good part of the rest of this talk to address, well, how do we become more embodied when there's trauma or strong feelings and emotions that feel like too much? Because there's not a wholesomeness to assuming that whatever's going on, we should be able to come into our body and feel it. That is absolutely deluded because we can re-traumatize ourselves. So when we don't have sufficient resources, and by resources I mean enough sense of safety or balance or stability to be mindful of what's going on in the body, that's the risk, that we can actually come into our body and feel the same raw terror we have felt before and actually deepen the groove of trauma. So what this tells us is that in order to become embodied, sometimes we need to first cultivate some resources. First, calm our nervous system some. The reality, though, is that eventually the unlived life that's there, that we're afraid to feel, needs to be lived if we're to heal. Eventually, it just, can we be gradual and intelligent about how we come into the body? I'd like to read you, I think, one of the wisest quotes in the world. This is author and psychotherapist Alice Miller. She writes, "What happens if we don't pay attention to what's in the body?" She says, "The truth about our childhood is stored up in our body, and although we can repress it, we can never alter it. Our intellect can be deceived, our feelings manipulated, and conceptions confused, and our body tricked with medication. But someday, our body will present its bill, for it is as incorruptible as a child who, still whole in spirit, will accept no compromises or excuses, and it will not stop tormenting us until we stop evading the truth." So another way to say that is that there's no true healing and there's no full experience of freedom, really experiencing reality, insight into truth, full awakening of heart, until we come into the body. So the process of rain that we described is a way in, but as I mentioned, and this really, it depends on how much trauma and how raw the emotions, how the pacing of it, whether we need to do a lot of resourcing. I'll share with you an example of a woman who actually came to this class, this Wednesday night class, a number of times before she came to see me privately. This was when I was still in practice as a therapist. And she told me that it was really difficult to follow the guided meditations because anytime she started trying to come into her body, she felt panicky. It was very agitating. And so I suggested to her that wasn't the meditation for her right now. And we started exploring what was going on for her. And this woman was a parole officer. And as a child, she had been sexually abused and continued to have relationships that were abusive. And whenever she was treated in a certain way or heard a certain tone of voice, she'd get panicky inside. And the way she described it was her insides would get all knotted up in a little ball, and she'd say, I disappear. I have no access to any sense of who I am and what's real, and my mind is spinning. But she said, even when I'm not triggered, she said, Tara, I feel like I've lost my soul. I don't have a feeling of depth of being. I don't feel alive. Can't feel my body. When I try to feel my body, I freak out. So the way I worked with her, and this is something we can do in therapy, but we also can do through meditation, is the inquiry of what actually gives you a sense of comfort, safety, connection, love. What does work? And each of us, we wouldn't be able to survive. We wouldn't be able to take a step on this earth if there weren't some even tendril of a thread to feeling belonging or safety. We have something. So we start with what we have. And so she named her best friend and her sister, and as the weeks went by, I got to join the club as allies, that she felt safe when she remembered us. So we started practicing how she could bring us to mind, how she could actually visualize the three of us surrounding her. And when she did it, and when she actually opened to how that felt, she said it felt like a warm bath, like she could just finally relax a little. That became a practice. Because the more you practice, where attention goes, energy flows. The more you practice, the more you create neural pathways that actually give you access. To her, it was access to that sense of being able to relax, being held. We practiced, and the more she could feel that, the more we could start practicing getting embodied. And we started with safe places in her body, which is important. You start with your hands or your feet, where the trauma isn't as located. So we started with safe places, and we began to include more and more of her body. And it was a kind of back forth thing where we'd establish a sense of safety and connection, and then she'd dip into her body, and then if things felt scary, she'd come back and remember the sense of connection, kind of in and out, until more and more she had the sense that she could have a presence that was more like the ocean, and the feelings in her body were waves, but she was big enough. Now, of course, that wouldn't happen when she'd get triggered. When she'd get triggered, she'd just have to go back to her resources. But it happened some months after we had been building these resources that her ex-boyfriend, her boyfriend had been very abusive. He was now an ex, but she was really frightened that he was going to be stalking her. She stayed overnight at her friend's house, but even after her friend had gone to sleep, the terror started building. So she did what we had done hundreds of times, called on her allies and felt that surrounding of her allies. And she said with that, she started opening into the fear. And she said it was like hot, broken glass tearing through her. It was really terror. But she just kept sensing, she kept visualizing and sensing her allies holding her. And she let the fear, she allowed it. She allowed it to move through her, a kind of surrendering that's not a weak surrendering. It's out of trust that she could hold it. And she said gradually, the fear was still there, but there was more and more space. The space of loving was bigger than the fear. And she said then it started filling with this warm, luminous light. And then she had tears because she realized it was the light of my own soul. The pathway is through, not necessarily right away. In fact, it's not wise or kind sometimes right away. But the pathway eventually is this kind of allowing that then totally transforms our relationship with the fear and reveals the space and the sense of the sacredness that is what we are.